This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. Now, we are all big Doom fans, so in anticipation for Doom the Dark Ages, we thought we'd rewind the clock a bit and check out a selection of Doom's weaponry from the 1993 original all the way up to 2020's Doom Eternal.
So again, he somehow ends up with normal future weapons that are somehow reflections of fantasy weapons that he's used in his past.
Nailed it.
I think.
I like that line of thought, though. In the sort of hell dimension, there are all these weapons that have either been recreated by demons with their understanding, or it's just like alternate universe, warped version of the Doomslayer's weapons.
Your Warhammer is showing, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. I tried not to be to get too Warhammered about it, but yeah. If you enjoy this kind of content, be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's episode. If you can't wait that long, you can head to our Patreon. Over there, we have 17 extended editions, including an extended edition of this episode, plus early access to next week's Doom the Dark Ages episode.
This is just glorious metal nonsense, and I'm all for it.
But without further ado, now I'll throw it over to Jonathan.
Ah, the classic. That sound effect. That not very good, but incredibly evocative sound effect. With the weird red muzzle flash. I was never really clear whether this was supposed to be some future pistol or just one of these. Because it was, if I remember rightly, it was a toy Beretta 92 that was photographed.
A lot of the guns in the original Doom were just scanned toys. It's crazy.
Oh, okay. Doom 64?
Yeah, they've changed the pistol, but it's still recognisably a real pistol.
Kinda, yeah. Well, no, definitely. I never played Doom 64, and it was only a few years ago that I realised it's a new story. New levels.
Yeah.
So I will play it at some point. I think I have it on PC now.
Yeah, as the BFG edition includes all the old Dooms.
So I'm definitely going to go back and play that. Yeah, it's one of these, isn't it? Desert Eagle. Not the world's best model of a Desert Eagle, but they sort of stuck to their guns with how they did the graphics. So normally the Deagle is, of course, your hand cannon. It's your upgrade pistol. It's something that might be viable later in the game. Don't think that's the case with Doom 64, but we can tell that's a Deagle. It is a slightly cursed Desert Eagle, that, isn't it? Yeah. I'm not really convinced about that Doom 64 pistol. I prefer the fake Beretta to the fake Desert Eagle. It does look bigger in his hand, to be fair, so maybe the proportions are about right, but it looks weirdly skinny up front. The muzzle flash is not very impressive, and it isn't very powerful, so not a huge fan of that. Moving on to Doom 3. This is where we do go sci-fi. This is a little bit Blade Runner-y.
I thought maybe the Doom 3 pistol was like someone's tried to design a pistol, but the only source material they've had is the Doom 1 view of the pistol. It's like you've been given that sprite and now make a sci-fi pistol off the back of that.
Maybe. It wouldn't look a million miles away if it was directly behind, but of course it isn't in this game. This is one we can excuse, I think, for having a slide, sort of a slide, that opens automatically. So it doesn't lock open, but when you change magazines, it comes to the rear. It's semi-plausible that in some sci-fi future, that's how it would work. I don't know why it would, unless it is a sort of, I don't know, electromechanically operated design somehow. And yet the slide portion moves back as it's firing, like it's a conventional firearm. So who knows? I don't think a great deal of thought went into the mechanics of that. But it's something, at least it's a proper sci-fi design for probably the first time in the franchise for the pistol. The pump action, I remember thinking how cool this was. In fact, I would sometimes use this in preference to the super shotgun, just because I love pump action shotguns in games. Then when I found out it was some photos of a toy, it kind of took the shine off a little bit.
Not just a toy, it's called the Tootsie Toy Dakota.
Yeah, I remember really liking the fact that the shots would pass through the grunts and kill guys behind. That may not be massively plausible for a shotgun, but it's possible. Certainly pellets could come out the other side. Maybe, sometimes. Much better sound effect here on Doom 64, but you've lost the cool pump animation. As flawed as it is with the whole toy situation, it's more like a Quake 1 3D model, but it isn't even a 3D model. It's still a bitmap. The muzzle flash is also taking place above the barrel, not in front of it for some reason. But hey, we've got a nicely detailed set of iron sights, so I guess that's okay. And then a major upgrade for Doom 3. With a very sci-fi looking design, but still pump, of course. We've still got to have the pump.
Yeah, Doom 3 just got like really sort of horror vibes, especially when it first came out and you had to choose between flashlight and weapon.
Yeah, that's the real reason, or would have been the real reason why I never played Doom 3. The practical reason is that my computer didn't run it and I didn't have a console. But that was a damn good excuse so that I didn't have to terrify myself. Which is funny, because I absolutely loved the first two games. And it was quite the wait for 3 to come out. And I was a bit sad that I couldn't at least. I think I played it on someone else's PC briefly. And someone released a mod for the... for the... flashlight, or torch as we say in this country. And then this is clearly, well, I say clearly, hang on, is this 2016?
Yeah, this is the Doom 2016 shotgun. It does seem to have a sort of aesthetic lineage between the Doom 3 and the 2016 shotgun. They don't look a million miles apart from each other. Obviously the 2016 one has its charge, burst and grenade functionality.
Yeah, that was an interesting development. Like, how do we stick with the basic weapons everyone loves and don't disappoint people, but also add new gameplay? So essentially, very advanced alt fire, where you can choose what alt fire you have. At the time, I thought, oh, that seems like a bit too much complication, but it worked fine. If you didn't want to use it, you could mostly get away with it. But it turned out to be quite useful. I think I still prefer 16 over Eternal, just for being a bit more simple, less platformy. It's something new, where you're replacing the whole front end of the gun to do something different. I don't think that necessarily jibes with a traditional mechanical pump action. Comes back to my old complaint, not really complaint, fun gameplay, rule of cool, but then on the other side of the house, we've got, why on earth would you still have a manually operated shotgun? Goodness knows that you're going to have reliable semi-automatic shotguns by this period in time. And they've radically changed up the design, of course, more than once. But you've got to have the pump for gameplay reasons and nostalgia reasons. Even though by this point, so we're on Eternal here, aren't we?
Yeah. With the sort of Gatling shotgun.
I remember that. I did use that for a while. And the grenade launcher. So it kind of redefines what a pump action shotgun in a game can be, while still retaining the basic action. So on that sort of meta or design level, I think both games have great guns, and probably the Eternal one is the best. But it does lose a bit of that simplicity. You know, that idea. The original inspiration clearly being Aliens. You know, Hicks with his antique heirloom Ithaca 37.
Eat this!
That's why that pump action was in Doom. And then decades later, we have this craziness. I did enjoy, as absolutely ludicrous as it is, I think I enjoyed the most that rotary Gatling gun shotgun mod.
Yeah, it's very cool. And you know, more barrels, like that's the easiest way to make a weapon like all that more impactful and feel dangerous, right?
Well, not only that, but it means your pump action shotgun, for a brief period, stops being a pump action shotgun and becomes an automatic shotgun. So you leap straight over semi-automatic and go straight to essentially full auto. And then when you burst as you know, when you've stopped, you're back to pump. Gameplay-wise, works brilliantly. You would obviously never do that for any practical purpose.
Revisiting these older games has just made me all the more excited to see the guns of Dark Age, especially as even from the trailers, they've gone even crazier with them.
I don't know. I feel like I have a limit with how crazy stuff should get, but I don't know where it is yet in Doom. So I'm hoping they stay the right side of my personal tolerance for nonsense. Yeah, classic. As featured in your guest episode with us earlier in the year, or this one is anyway. So I went with this one deliberately because it has the buttstock but the cut down barrels, which I think the original in-game model of the Super Shotgun does have. It's in retrospect, it's kind of weird that it was called the Super Shotgun, because that implies something more like what we see in Eternal, that something that does something other than a normal shotgun. But the actual shotgun in Doom 2 was just one of these. Like, maybe it's a 10 gauge rather than a 12, based on how big and powerful it is, but otherwise, it's farmers' mums, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Which is all the more bizarre when you think about the setting and time period that one of the most powerful weapons from Doom 2 onwards is, at least in this iteration, a standard, you've got one right now, double barrel shotgun.
Yeah. And then you end up with it becoming this mythical, ancient, legendary weapon. So we go from it being essentially antique. Side-by-side shotguns are old hat now, effectively. Certainly would be in the future of the Doom universe. So this one has to be another Hicks from Aliens style scenario where this is just what some colonist had or something, to then becoming this mythical, high-tech version of the same idea, and then full circle, it turns out to have been ancient and like his Excalibur almost. It's like ridiculous layers of lore with very little care for making any sense and just like gleefully doing whatever's cool. And I guess that's always been the case with Doom. Starting ever so slightly grounded and then cheerfully running over the horizon, waving its super shotgun in the air. So this is not an ejector gun, so it doesn't shoot the cases out. So preempting it, and preempting, I guess. We do our Doom reload. Kind of, it's a little awkward. Let's try again. It'd be easier with full length cartridges. These are snap caps, just to save the firing pins. And to do the Doom reload, you've got to kind of awkwardly grasp them in your hand and shove them in. I think with enough practice, one of these is broken. I think with enough practice, you could probably make a fist of it, literally. But it always felt a bit kind of... They needed the reload speed to be slower, but not so slow that it wasn't fun to use. So they was kind of clink, 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 clack, done. Just holding down the fire button, hoping for the best in my case. Now the Doom 64 gun does feel like a bit more of a... I don't know, actually. I was going to say it looks more sci-fi, but the wooden stock goes all the way up to the breech reinforcement, the body, the action.
There's no reload animation, despite hearing it go clunk click either, which is
that sucks.
Very weird to see.
I'm going to time travel back to 1997 and say that's a terrible decision. So why they removed the reload animations, I don't know. I didn't realise that the guns were so different in 64. Maybe some technical limitation, but I doubt it. Look at what GoldenEye achieved. Anyway, there we go. This must be the first time we get a truly sci-fi design. So this is that middle step where this is somehow side by side 12 gauge in space, looking like a proper sci-fi gun. So with the implication that this was always a combat weapon, not a found agricultural tool. So almost a bit of retconning there. But then Doom 3, I believe, was a reboot anyway. It was intended to be a reboot. I think they've subsequently tried to fit it all into continuity, but there really is no continuity in Doom. Very chunky, very different. Somehow doesn't look right when it's not held in the middle of the screen. And a different reload, because they've got this rib down the middle, so he's having to junk, junk, rather than shove them both in at once. This is the first proper look I've had at this, because I didn't play the game for any length of time, and I haven't watched any footage really, so I feel like I missed out with this. So maybe that absolutely horrifying VR playthrough is in my cards. Now, the 2016 one I think is a great compromise between something sci-fi, although it turns out to be maybe more fantasy, and the classic design. Really good sound effects, obviously, by this point. Proper boom. We've lost the buttstock. It's now a sawn-off grip as well. I guess partly because he's now this semi-mythical, huge muscle character that can absolutely shoot a fully sawn-off shotgun without worrying about it. In practical terms, don't try this at home, kids, but buttstock is always preferable for aiming, for recoil control, and I guess for butt stroking, if I can say that on the internet.
Definitely
I just have.
Not safely.
If I have one complaint about the design, because I mean, who cares about how big and heavy it is? My one complaint about this design is the sort of nod to a sight on the top there that isn't one. That serves no mechanical function that I can discern. We're back to, of course, the fist reload. So it's good how they managed to blend innovation with nostalgia really successfully with these games. This might be where the first time it's stated that it's actually this ancient mythical, semi-mythical weapon rather than just something you found on a space station. Not really explained why it changes design. I guess the basic silhouette's the same as the previous game, but every detail is different on this.
My headcanon is I think the mythical version of the super shotgun, Lucifer's Bane, has been the Doomslayer's weapon throughout his time, but it's got a form factor that's very familiar to him. So the previous super shotguns he's just really proficient with because he's always used this mythical version. But the previous ones were just normal, maybe big bore, double barrel shotguns. And now he's finally like, oh, this is like the weapon's mythical granddaddy.
This is old Betsy. Yeah, I think that's the only canon that makes sense, actually. And even then, not a great deal. But yeah, this is his original ancient version, which actually raises the question, what does it look like in Dark Ages? Is it the same model as this? Because I bet it isn't. Yeah, and that big lump that I suspect was kind of, oh, you need something on the top of a gun, because guns have things on top of them. With this one, they've instead of going, oh, that doesn't make sense, we'll remove that, they've doubled down and put a great big hook on the top of it, and it's even less clear what on earth that does. But hey, if it's this mythical, legendary Excalibur to King Arthur kind of relationship, then it can look like whatever he likes, can't it?
And when you first get it in Eternal, it's like being guarded by a revenant, and as soon as there's a risk of the weapon getting back into the Slayer's hands, a bunch of enemies come and try and prevent that.
In fact, for when I heard about the Dark Ages concept, I thought, oh, are they going to have that melted down and turned into that battle axe that we see him with? But they're both in the game, I gather.
Are you a fan of Doom? Well, if you head over to our Patreon, you can watch not only the extended edition of this episode, but also our Doom The Dark Ages episode. Because obviously we needed to share the gun that shoots shards of skulls with Jonathan. That was quite hard to say. In fact, we've now got a selection of over 17 extended director's cut episodes, and every single one is available to extended edition patrons. Links to our Patreon can be found in the description below, and each patron helps keep this project and this channel alive. It lets us do more cool stuff and bring you guys more cool content. But whether you watch along on YouTube or follow us on our Patreon, thank you for all of your support, for liking the video, subscribing, commenting, all of that good stuff. And now, I'll get back to the video.
The old school plasma rifle is so interesting, so different from the other weapons in the game, with that delay of the projectiles or energy blasts, whatever they are. Really something you would keep in your back pocket, as it were, for when you needed something more powerful. Which is a shame, because it has the chance to actually mulch basic enemies if you shoot them.
What's interesting is the design of the plasma rifles. So the original Doom plasma rifle influenced the Doom Eternal design. The Doom 3 plasma rifle influenced the Doom 2016 design. And you can see those design parallels, and it's almost like, oh, they're two different types of plasma weapons that coexist in the world of Doom.
Yeah, I didn't actually because having not played Doom 3, I didn't grasp that connection. I just remember thinking, oh, it's a shame they've moved away from the classic plasma rifle design. But actually, I do quite like that. When you think of when this came out, you don't want the Dustbuster design. I forget what the reference was for the original plasma rifle. It was another toy, I think. So they've thrown that out the window for Doom 3, but you still have the blue plasma bolts.
Funnily enough, the original reference to the original Doom plasma gun is apparently a Rambo toy M60.
Oh, God. Okay. No, I didn't remember that. Radically different from an actual M60, needless to say. The back half must look more like an M60, I guess. The back half you don't see.
Yeah, you take it's like the barrel and the trigger have that sort of square, blocky, ribbed that they've obviously photo mapped to make it into the plasma gun.
That's funny. So the Rambo toy was probably made less realistic to not annoy parents, I guess. And then Doom has turned it into a real gun that mulches demons and possessed humans, I guess. Yeah, so this is the riff on Doom 3. Yeah, definite lines, but it is quite different. It's kind of like its own thing, but like even that silly hoop front sight thing is on there. The general silhouette is there.
And the ammo counter from 3 is now the temperature gauge in 2016.
And it does have that venting of blue plasma out of the front as well that 3 had. Which actually is consistent. So Eternal, despite the gameplay being... And maybe that was a deliberate choice. Like the gameplay moves further away from the original, but the art direction references back to the first 2 games.
Hey! Who are you? You can't be here.
I like that he's just like, give me that.
Yeah, I did enjoy that opening. And that really does look like, okay, so we've got a digitized photo of a silly child's toy gun. What do we do with that to make people go, oh, it's like the old one? But it's actually been completely redesigned. And even the sound effect sounds like an upgraded version of the original. Really good sound.
I love Doom Eternal. So good.
And we have to mention the music, of course. I know it's not my area, but both of those games, astonishingly good music.
Oh, yeah.
It's the music that played in your head when you played the original.
That's exactly it.
Lots of scope for fun alt-fire modes with the energy weapons, of course. Well, don't think it lets them hold... They don't let it hold them back for the bullet-firing weapons either. But I'm a sucker for an energy beam. Probably as an old-school Star Trek fan. I like me something that operates a bit like a phaser, although that was a bit different. I think I've said this before, but the central position makes sense for most of the guns in the original games, especially the shotgun, because you're actually something like that. If you have no stock, which this one does, but anyway, you really do want to hold it in the middle of your body to control the recoil. But a rocket launcher. Rocket launchers go over your shoulder. Like, where is the back of this tube?
Yeah, because the sprite in the original Doom has what looks like a pump grip and a pistol grip. So it's like a rocket launching rifle.
Which would be a bad idea, because you need somewhere for the recoil energy generated by the thrust of the rocket. There's a reason why most rocket launchers, well, all handheld rocket launchers have some means of getting the warhead out of the tube before the rocket motor kicks in, because you get a huge build-up of the recoil forces and it will knock you on your butt. It's not fatal, but it ain't comfortable. And of course they get more complex. We have this magazine. Now here it's kind of still implied that he's, well, not implied, it's shown that he's holding it sort of under the arm, off to one side now. And it's got some sci-fi recoil mitigation. Don't worry about it. I think in reality, a magazine system for something like this would be too unwieldy and heavy for practical use. These are crew-served weapons, unless you're looking at something like a Law 66, which is for an individual soldier to carry and use, obviously. This kind of shoulder-fired thing is meant to be crew-served, but it's also meant to be fired over the shoulder. But, you know, as an update to the classic rocket launcher, this was an obvious way to go, with the inevitable splash damage hazard of shooting a rocket launcher in a corridor. So we've moved away from the sort of Bofors gun magazine on the side to... I'm not sure, actually. Do we know where the magazine is supposed to be on this? Underneath?
I mean, that's the thing with the 2016 Eternal weapons, because they don't reload.
Yeah.
There's rockets somewhere. Somewhere or on your person there's rockets, and you get to fire them.
It's best not to inquire where those are stored.
I get the feeling they're sort of moved in from somewhere behind it. I don't know. The functionality reminds me of like a tank's autoloader.
Yes, I think that if it has an inspiration, that's what it will be, with a spinny bit in the middle for some reason. And then we're in a retro Doom 2 level here, which is messing with my mind slightly. Yeah, I mean, not much to say about this, to be honest. I think it does the job.
The one alt fire that I never personally understood the use case for it is detonating your rockets midair.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't use that.
You just get to shoot them in the air, and I feel like through a lot of games, I've been trained to just shoot the feet near the enemy rather than try and like aerial splash damage them. And I think most people just use the lock-on burst function if they were going to use any alt fire from the 2016 rocket launcher.
That I use, but I think I'm more apt to shoot it into a wall or a floor, like you say, or a ceiling for that matter.
Yeah, or if you need to make an accurate shot, the other mode has tracking.
Let us know in the comments what the use for that would be. I remember us looking at this with the skulls and the chains. Very metal, an excess of metal, I would say.
Done away with a lot of any real-world firearm parallels with the Eternal rocket launcher.
Yeah, is there in-game lore for this thing? I don't remember if I ever this up. Like, why does it look so... Like, the super shotgun I can kind of get behind as it's this ancient thing. Is that true for the whole suite of weapons? Are we going to see fantasy versions of all of them?
There is a lot of that with Eternal, because it's technically, well, we know it as the rocket launcher, in-game or in-universe, it's just called the Pain Giver. So I think it's shooting balls of pain rather than rockets. Which
okay. So again, he somehow ends up in the future with normal future weapons that are somehow reflections of fantasy weapons that he's used in his past, but his past is also his future.
Nailed it.
I think.
I mean, I like that line of thought, though, that in the sort of hell dimension, there are all these weapons that have either been recreated by demons with their understanding, or it's just like alternate universe, warped version of the Doomslayer's weapons. And this
your
is what
Warhammer is showing, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. I tried not to get too Warhammer nerd about it, but yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm not complaining. We've had so many weapons of all these kinds over the years. I think it's hard to do a rocket launcher that is fun and interesting if you don't break free of, convention. And boy, did they do that. Now this was also based on some weird toy, if I remember rightly.
It's a raw gun, which is a toy sci-fi gun. It's like the back of it is shown and then it's mirrored. So it's like two guns spliced together. But yeah, it's two of those plastic... Do you remember the plastic guns that every time you pull the trigger a different sound would play?
Yeah.
It's one of those scanned and mirrored.
But at the time, that thing was pretty astonishing. You had to work hard to get it, and then something that would just clear an entire room with one shot. I don't remember playing anything like it. Admittedly, first-person shooters were pretty much still in their infancy there. Once you've got that in a game, you absolutely have to... That and the super shotgun, I think, are probably the only two things you would have to absolutely have in a Doom game, or it isn't a Doom game. The BFG, and we all know what that stands for, don't we?
Big Friendly Giant.
That's right. Oh, that's good. To come back with 2016 and do something that was recognisably the BFG, in terms of how much space it takes up on the screen and how it evokes the original, but actually looks completely different. And the sound effect and just a modern version of the effect that we... Again, it's the version of the BFG that you imagined rather than what was on screen in 93.
All personnel, demand threat at level 5.
And the lightning bolts connecting the splash damage is really cool. Shades of the Quake lightning gun, and all sorts of other things. But it was a little weird with the original game how they just kind of got green flashes and died without anything connecting them. That was almost certainly a graphical limitation. They probably always wanted some beam connecting the central blast. But I think this is, like a lot of the weapons in the last two games, this feels like this is the gun you had in the original game. It's just you remember it differently. You've always got to have bits that spin and bits that pop out. Some visual interest to make up for the lack of moving parts. Or cool reload like we get with the super shotgun.
The entrance to the BFG 10,000 is just across from this facility.
I love in Eternal they turn the BFG 9000 into a massive planetary defense laser.
So is that now some mythical ancient weapon as well? I remember this scene. The impatient tapping. Nuts. How can we top the most powerful weapon in the game?
And then the Doomslayer just goes and goes, nah, this is mine actually.
Yeah. The actual design is very close to the 2016 version, but they've, in common with the other weapons and other aspects of this game, they've added in a little bit of a hint of the original games with the lighter coloured casing. So it's a bit more reminiscent of the original BFG.
I love that in both 2016 and Eternal as well, as soon as you get the BFG 9000, you're just presented with a room full of enemies.
Of course.
Just like, right, we've given you this gun, now see what it can do.
You've got to test it out.
Any final thoughts? Obviously we didn't see everything, but I think we saw a good spread of some of the weapons from across the franchise.
Good to see them in that sort of evolutionary way and compare them. Looking forward to Dark Ages with a bit of trepidation, because mixing sci-fi and fantasy, you know, could go either way, but I'm confident that it's going to be good fun.
The Slayer has control.
Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed this exploration of the Doom franchise and its weaponry. If you did, make sure to like the video, comment your thoughts down below, and of course, subscribe. As always, a huge shout out to all of our supporters over on the EXP Patreon for helping make these episodes and this project a reality. Links to support the Royal Armouries will be in the description below, as will links to all of EXP's social pages. But until I see you again in next week's episode, thank you again for watching, and we'll see you real soon.